So this is Julie. Julie is a nutritionist. She runs a practical sports nutrition group, and she is also a triathlete and just a wonderful person in general. So Julie, let's get right down to it since we have a little bit of time before Julie has to leave, and we may even do this in two different parts since it took me a little bit longer to kind of get it up and rolling.
Okay.
Technical issues. So Julie, one of the big questions that I wanted to ask you was what you need to do or eat before you ride, if it's different riding in the morning versus the afternoon.
Okay. So I think, there's the science and the art of this. So we're going to talk about the science and you guys get to practice the art, right? So I'll just kind of tell you a story. So I was looking at some of the comments, and what I find too is that I think women maybe tend to underestimate how much food they may need before they exercise. And then there's always that thing about, well, I really don't want to gain any weight. I really, and so we bring that into the picture. And so then it's kind of this perfect storm to where we probably aren't fueled well enough. And so then that can cause problems. Even maybe you feel okay during the ride, but then afterwards you're famished. So I think this is such a great question, Liz, to talk about. So fueling, let's talk about like morning. Like if this is your first thing that you do during the day, and it would be so fun if this was interactive, but I'm curious, if you guys want to comment below too, like how many of you guys do eat something before you exercise? Typically biking, you're not jostling your stomach as much. So I would like to think that it could handle something in the morning. And depending on how much time you have, typically we look at maybe getting in 200 or 300 calories in the morning before you go ride. And preferably we want, kind of a 3-to-1 carbohydrate to protein ratio. Like I always like a banana with peanut butter. And then if I was going out for a bike ride, I'd probably add like a bowl of cereal, something to that. So I like to make sure that I've got something going. Liz, what do you do? What do you like to do before you ride?
I don't really ride in the morning. I typically have more of time in the afternoon. And I like eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which probably isn't the best.
It's great. I think something that's perfect, like quick and easy. Yeah. So kind of depending on how you are, usually within an hour, you probably would like something to eat. Like it depends on how much time you have as to how big that meal or snack should be. And, but definitely do want some carbohydrate and protein in there. And then sometimes people tell me, they just really can't eat anything before the exercise. I don't, some people just can't. If that's the case, then I would suggest if you're a morning exerciser, like I would try to have a fairly decent snack at night before you go to bed, and maybe that can kind of carry you through to morning. And then let's also talk about like during the ride. So I don't know, I guess you guys are probably going out for a couple hours, an hour, 2 hours.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. So we got one girl says on here, she commented she eats a protein type bar before her morning ride and sometimes a banana. And then Jamie says a protein shake or oatmeal or a banana or oatmeal and a banana.
Okay.
What do those things sound to you? And I know Michelle was one that says that if she, like after she gets done riding in the morning, then she just wants to eat everything the rest of the day.
Okay, and what did Michelle eat? Did she say what she ate?
She eats like some type of protein bar and then also some type of banana.
So Michelle,
a banana.
So you guys, you got to make sure you get enough carbohydrates in because that's your fuel. You're not really burning protein. Protein's good for blood sugar stabilization, but that is not your fuel. So my guess is you may need a little bit more, like maybe try, even like a yogurt would be good that's got some carbohydrate and protein in there. You could try some granola in there maybe just to add a little bit more. Because I think if you fuel right before and during, you shouldn't be famished afterwards. Like that's, right? Like that is kind of the goal. Like, I remember when I was first training for marathons and when I first did it, I didn't feel very well because I was going through that stupid thing about what I just said, like, oh, I don't want to gain weight. Like, why do I want to do that, right? And then I totally bonked in my marathon, didn't run another one for 17 years. Yeah, 17 years later. And so then I started fueling well, and I'm like, oh, and then I wasn't as hungry afterwards. So it's like once you get fuel during, so I'm curious, Michelle, if you're doing anything during the ride. So the goal, you guys, is during is like 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour.
How much is it actually?
You what?
How much is 30 to 60 grams?
So it's a GU is 25 grams, so that sort of gives you a rough idea. A lot of the, like a cup of Gatorade is 14 grams. So raisins, like a quarter cup of raisins is probably going to be about 30 grams as well. So some things like that. Like one of my favorite, I brought these because I wanted to show you guys, are like my figs. The thing is nobody likes figs, so you won't have to share them.
I love them. They're so good. You have to share them with me.
Oh, this is like awesome, you guys. And so for about a third a cup of these, you're going to get 26 grams of fiber. Not fiber, carbohydrates, sorry.
Perfect. One of the other
26 grams, yeah, and it does give you fiber, which I don't really care about if you're on your bike. Running, maybe not, but if you're on your bike, you'll probably be fine. So this is really a good snack, kind of really can carry you over pretty well. But I do like the peanut butter sandwiches during. I like any of the solid foods that you can get in is great. I'm curious what you guys do during your bike rides.
One girl commented, or Michelle also commented, she said she tried McDonald's, but it made her nauseated before. Michelle, bless your heart.
Was this an afternoon or morning ride? Like,
Melanie, this sounds really good. She mixes jasmine rice, coconut milk, and mangoes. That sounds so good. Melanie, I want your recipe.
Yeah. And maybe even putting in a little bit more protein possibly with that too. The other thing I was going to show you guys is this is my, I think this is the coolest thing ever. This is a microwave egg cooker. And you can cook an egg in here in 29 seconds. It's funny. I grew up on a farm, but my mom cooked eggs in the microwave. Like, go figure. And most people don't even know you can cook eggs in the microwave. Did you know that? Yeah. So anyway, so you can put your egg in there, 29 seconds, put it on a toasted English muffin, cheese, and walk out the door. So this is something I would also eat before a bike ride. Like that, again, it depends on your stomach. But lots of, things that you can do. So kind of trying to play around with it a little bit, try out some different things to see what works. But again, it's not just about the protein. The protein's good for stabilization, but you've got to make sure you've got some carbohydrates in there.
And not just like simple carbohydrates like potatoes and like bread, or are we talking more like complex carbohydrates like?
Liz, that's a good question. So honestly, your muscle doesn't care. And when we talk, so you have to also separate out sports nutrition from normal nutrition. So when we're talking sports nutrition, I really am looking for the simple carbohydrates. So and I mean even potatoes and rice and cereals and sometimes even, for crying out loud, white bread. Because it's going to get in there quicker, right? Like it's just going to get to where it needs to go quicker. So so sports nutrition is a little different. And especially when you guys are gearing up for big competitions or big rides, I don't mean to say you don't have to throw health out the window, but you've really got to fuel. And there's only so many fruits and vegetables you can eat to get your carbohydrates in. You're going to have to rely on some of those simple carbohydrates. Great. So I do like yogurt. I like milk. I mean, they've got some of that carbohydrate and protein in there as well, which is nice. So again, those can be very handy.
Great. Samantha says that she does some dairy-free smoothies and contains a lot of yummy things, including, bone broth, collagen powder, bananas, and almond milk. And then Kathy says that she does some scrambled eggs and greens wrapped in a corn tortilla. That sounds delicious.
Okay. Yeah.
I want to hear about what you guys eat during your ride. So I think we know we need some carbohydrates, definitely some protein before it. And then we're talking like pretty close to before your ride, like 30 minutes or so, right?
Before what they eat before or during? Or,
Like
yeah.
between 30 minutes and when they start the ride is when we're talking, right? For that, like carbohydrates, protein, and a little bit of like fibers, kind of like.
Yeah, usually like 5 to 60 minutes, something like that. Like
Okay.
anywhere in that whole like range, right? Yeah.
And then we talk during the ride to get at least like 30 something grams of carbohydrates.
30 to 60, yeah. So it could be a couple cups of Gatorade would do the trick. But if you're going out there for a long ride, you're maybe even going to need more than that. So just kind of playing that by ear, and kind of seeing how you feel. So the Cliff Bars are good, because the Cliff Bars do have more carbohydrates in them. Mm-hmm. So again, just making sure you've got that. The peanut butter sandwiches with jelly or honey, like those are great. You could do your own kind of trail mix with cereal and nuts and dried fruit.
What do you do for electrolyte replacements?
So depending on if you're a salty sweater, right? Like if you may or may not need it, depending on, and there are some other sports drinks too. Like I personally like to get it from my sports drink if I can. If you guys are sports drink people, do you drink sports drinks, Liz, or?
No, I usually will use Noon or None. I actually don't even know how you pronounce that correctly. It's N-U-U.
Right.
And then I also have used some of these electrolyte pills. A lot of the sports drinks really mess with my stomach. They're too sugary for me.
Right.
When I played in college, it did not go well for me. Like they'd have to find other alternatives for me.
So I do have a homemade sports drink. And that one, let me make sure I get this right, is I could post that. I'll post that in the comments.
Yeah, why don't you post that in the comments? That'd be sweet.
It's just lemon juice, sugar, salt, and water. That's all it is. And a lot of people do like that better than the Gatorade. So, but yeah, so if you're out there again for a long time, and Liz, when you are taking those electrolytes, how long are you riding for typically?
Well, I think it depends. For me, it depends on like the elevation gain within it. Mm-hmm. So I could be out there for 3 hours, 2 hours, and it would just depend on how much I'm exerting for that. So if I go on my typical ride that I have that's close to me is around 11 to 1,200 foot a gain and about 7 miles.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more steep than at other places. And
right. And that's, yeah.
I sweat a little bit more.
Right. And so how much are you taking? A couple 100 milligrams, do you think, or?
Just one of those tablets that Noon has. Julie, I am terrible with nutrition.
Yeah, so like, well, these are the, yeah. So let me see, this is the fizz one. I'm trying to say Hammer has this. Usually they're around, I think, a couple 100 milligrams, I think.
I also drink pickle juice. I love pickle juice. I know that's
really?
But I freaking love it.
Okay, yeah. A lot of people.
Melanie said that she drinks pickle juice for electrolytes as well.
Okay, yeah. And if that's what works for you, that's great. I mean, because that's definitely has a salt in there. Yeah, for sure. It's funny because I noticed sometimes people. Like I had a client in the UK that was over supplementing salt. Like he was so worried about salt that he would take in too much, and then he was getting gut aches too. So you have to make sure that, again, you're not overdoing the salt, because then the water can't really move where it's going to go. It needs to go either. So yeah, and again, per hour, maybe if you're a really heavy sweater, maybe up to 500 milligrams per hour. It kind of just depends a little bit on that. So.
Then do you carry anything with you to help? Pardon? Do you carry anything with you whenever you ride to help supplement that?
What do you mean, the salt or the? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't, but I recommend people do. I don't do anything that long anymore. I do short stuff. But so people will either we get it from sports drink or we get it from additional, like what you just said, the little tablets. Whatever. So any of those are great. So I kind of like to see what the athlete's doing is how I work with them. And then we kind of just go from there. Either check it off, yeah, that's great, or if we need to change it, we do. But I only fix what's broken. If it's not broken, don't worry about it. So if you feel that's going well for you, then yeah, continue that.
Cool. Because I know a lot of the ladies in here are from Florida, and they are profusely in that hot and humid heat down there. I see one of the gals says that she uses rock tang mix for hot Florida, and another gal uses scratch or noon. 3 to 4 hour ride in Florida. So I think that's probably good. All right, yes. We have one more quick question, or one more quick answer, and I'm gonna have to have Julie back on here whenever I don't have technical difficulties again.
Yeah.
And because Julie is gonna have to leave in like just a couple minutes. So Julie, is carb loading or eating the day before, is that actually true or not?
Yes. But it's not, there is kind of a science to that. There's, different little protocols that you can try, but it's not really as ridiculous, I think, as it used to be. But what I suggest for most people is to look at 2 days ahead of time, because it takes about 48 hours for your body to replenish glycogen completely. And so glycogen is the storage form of glucose, and that's your carbohydrate. And you want to start your training, your races, as much as possible with your muscles fully loaded. So 48 hours before, that's when I would probably start doing it. And what it can look like is, maybe drinking sports drink or drinking some juices, stuff that we normally wouldn't do. That can add it, maybe just increasing a little bit of your portions of your carbohydrates. So if you look at, you guys can see this very well, but like this is a plate, right? Can you guys see this? So, a lot of time if you're not doing heavy training, you're going to put your veggies here, your carbohydrates, your protein here. But when you guys are like really pumping up and getting ready for some heavy training, I want your carbs here. I want half your plate to be carbohydrates and then veggies and protein. Does that make sense? To really get your body ready for what it needs to do. And again, if it's not heavy training, you can put your veggies here, it just kind of just to give you a rough idea. But yeah, typically if you're resting, you combine it with rest, and your body stores water with carbohydrates. So you're going to feel a little, possibly, as your body's storing that, but it all goes away when you get to the starting line or start your training. It's just, it feels really good. Like it's almost like you're just bouncing out and getting ready to go. So, so I would say a couple days out, I would probably start increasing carbohydrates just a little bit more. And then with rest, combined with rest, it really puts you in a good position.
Awesome.
Great. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Julie, for coming on. I know you need to run, and I'm sorry, everybody. We'll have Julie on again in like a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'd love to do that, you guys.
Answer all the rest of the questions that you guys had. I know I didn't get to them all, and I'm super sorry. But Julie, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for coming on. One last thing, Gabby says that she will drink a Red Bull before the ride to give her.
Oh, okay. Let me just say one thing about caffeine. Yeah, an hour before. Caffeine is awesome.
Awesome.
You might want to practice, but maybe we'll talk more about that next time. But caffeine is pretty cool. It's one of those ergogenic aids that, it doesn't take the place of a great healthy diet and your training diet, but it's just something you can look at. So was that Gabby? Gabby? Yeah, good job. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's saying thank you. And thank you, everybody.
Okay.
I hope you have a wonderful night.
Okay, bye-bye.